Oh my God. I just watched the best political debate in decades, son. jdvance versus timwalz. 这个跟 Kamehameha v 川普差很多呢.
It's true.
These two actually answered questions. Not only that, but there were zero personal attacks, and craziest of all, they actually agreed with each other more than 10 times. Holy moly. I'm gonna show you how a man went from the lowest favorability rating in all of presidential history in the past 30 years to possibly, maybe, yokunan being the best presidential candidate out of these four people here. And by the time you get to the end of this video, you just might want to cast your vote for JD Mascara Man Vance. 这么精彩，让我们继续看下去。So, in this age of extreme political rhetoric, which includes name-calling and fear-mongering, from Trump to Kamala to Biden, most people might have forgot that debates are actually supposed to be civil.
Are you serious?
So back in the day, I mean like 15 years ago, presidential debates used to be about figuring out where you disagree with your opponent, maybe finding common ground, and if you don't, just agree to disagree, and ultimately persuade the audience why your way is better without shitting on your opponent. Well, that is just remnants of a bygone era now. And what you're about to see here, these two, unlike their bosses, have found a way to disagree with each other while still respecting each other.
In the past, you have supported a federal ban on abortion after 15 weeks. In fact, you said if someone can't support legislation like that, quote, you are making the United States the most barbaric pro-abortion regime anywhere in the entire world. My question is, why have you changed your position?
Well, Nora, first of all, I never supported a national ban. I did when I was running for Senate in 2022 talk about setting some minimum national standard. For example, we have a partial birth abortion ban in place in this country at the federal level. I don't think anybody's trying to get rid of that, or at least I hope not, though I know that Democrats have taken a very radical pro-abortion stance. But Nora, you know, one of the things that changed is in the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back. And that's why Donald Trump and I are committed to pursuing pro-family policies, making childcare more accessible, making fertility treatments more accessible, because we've got to do a better job at that. And that's what real leadership is.
All right. So we're 90 seconds into JD's answer, and he is already losing this one. This is abortion, something that the Republicans are supposed to be very passionately pro-life, a very emotional issue. But right now, JD Vance sounds cold and logical, and he's only mentioned the word woman twice.
Governor, your response.
I'm going to respond on the pro-abortion piece of that. No, we're not. We're pro-women. We're pro-freedom to make your own choice. We know what the implications are to not be that. Women having miscarriages, women not getting the care, physicians feeling like they may be prosecuted for providing that care. And as far as making sure that we're educating our children and giving them options, Minnesota's a state with one of the lowest teen pregnancy rates. We understand that too. We know that the options need to be available, and we make that true. We also make it, we're a top 3 state for the best place to raise children. But these two things to try and say that we're pro-children, but we don't like this, or you guys are pro-abortion, that's not the case at all. We are pro-freedoms for women to make their choices, and we're going, and Kamala Harris is making the case, to make options for children more affordable, a $6,000 child tax credit, but we're not going to base that on the backs of making someone like Amber Thurman drive 600 miles to try and get health care.
So here, Vance is clearly trying to encourage people to have families and also trying to come up with a way for it to be more affordable without them even considering abortion as an option, which is cool and logical for people who have families. But my man, you kind of missed the point. And Tim pointed it out loud and clear. They are pro-women, and the right to decide whether or not they want to have a family is up to them. But it's not so much what Tim said that's more convincing, it's the way he said it. He said it forcefully and emotionally. And 这个对我来说比较有说服力. So compared to Vance's smooth, cold, and logical approach, Tim is winning this one. And in this next bit, it's about to get heated.
Senator.
May I respond to that? First of all, Governor, I agree with you. Amber Thurman should still be alive, and there are a lot of people who should still be alive, and I certainly wish that she was. And maybe you're free to disagree with me on this and explain this to me, but as I read the Minnesota law that you signed into law, the statute that you signed into law, it says that a doctor who presides over an abortion where the baby survives, the doctor is under no obligation to provide life-saving care to a baby who survives a botched late That is, I think,
That's
whether
not
you're
true.
pro-choice or
That's not how the law
pro-abortion,
is.
that is fundamentally barbaric. And that's why I use that word, Nora, is because some of what we've seen, do you want to force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions against their will? Because Kamala Harris has supported suing Catholic nuns to violate their freedom of conscience. We can be a big and diverse country where we respect people's freedom of conscience and make the country more pro-baby and pro-family. But please.
So again, my man keeps saying baby. I think he said it 3 times, and he said the law 3 times. But not once in this segment has he mentioned the word woman. So again, Tim Walz is going to have to show him how it's done.
Yes, Governor, please respond.
Look, this is one where there's always something there. This is a very simple proposition. These are women's decisions to make about their healthcare decisions, and the physicians who know best when they need to do this. Trying to distort the way a law is written to try and make a point, that's not it at all.
What was I wrong about, Governor? Please tell me, what was I wrong about?
That is not the way the law is written. Look, I've given
But
this...
how?
I've given this advice on a lot of things, that getting involved, getting engaged, that's been misread, and it was fact-checked at the last debate. But the point on this is there's a continuation of these guys to try and tell women or to get involved. I use this line on this, just mind your own business. Things worked best when Roe versus Wade was in place. When we do a restoration of Roe, that works best.
I asked a specific question, Governor. You gave me a slogan as a response.
It's not the case. It's not true. That's not what the law says.
So I see what Vance is trying to do here. He's trying to corner Walz on his stance on a particular abortion law. But here's the thing. To the American people, especially women, they just want to know the answer to one question. Who gets to choose? And again, Tim beats Vance by saying things emotionally simple and crystal clear. But as they move to gun control, things are about to flip in Vance's favor.
You oppose red flag gun laws and legislation to ban certain semi-automatic rifles, including AR-15s. So let me ask you, earlier this year, for the first time, the parents of a school shooter were convicted of involuntary manslaughter and sentenced to 10 years in prison. Do you think holding parents responsible could curb mass shootings? I'll give you 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, Nora, on that particular case, I don't know the full details, but I certainly trust local law enforcement and local authorities to make those decisions. I think in some cases the answer is going to be yes, and in some cases the answer is going to be no. And the details really matter here, of course. For example, if a kid steals a gun, that's going to be different than if a parent hands over a gun knowing that their kid is potentially dangerous. But look, I want to just sort of speak as a father of 3 beautiful little kids, and our oldest is now in 2nd grade. And like a lot of parents, we send our kids to school with such hope and such joy and such pride at their little faces on the first day of school. And we know, unfortunately, that a lot of kids are going to experience this terrible epidemic of gun violence. And of course, our hearts go out to the families that are affected by this terrible stuff. And we do have to do better. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agree that we need to do better on this. The question is just, how do we actually do it? Now, here's something that really bothers me and worries me about this epidemic of violence. The gross majority, close to 90% in some of the statistics I've seen, of the gun violence in this country is committed with illegally obtained firearms. And while we're on that topic, we know that thanks to Kamala Harris's open border, we've seen a massive influx in the number of illegal guns run by the Mexican drug cartels. So that number, the amount of illegal guns in our country is higher today than it was 3.5 years ago. But what do we do about the schools? What do we do to protect our kids? And I think the answer is, and I say this not loving the answer, because I don't want my kids to go to school in a school that feels unsafe or where there are visible signs of security. But I unfortunately think that we have to increase security in our schools. We have to make the doors lock better. We have to make the doors stronger. We've got to make the windows stronger. And of course, we've got to increase school resource officers, because the idea that we can magically wave a wand and take guns out of the hands of bad guys, it just doesn't fit with recent experience. So we've got to make our schools safer. And I think we've got to have some common sense bipartisan solutions for how to do that.
Okay, so Vance answered a 2-part question actually pretty damn well. After admitting that he doesn't know enough about the case that the moderator is talking about, he moves on to the bigger issue, red flag laws. Now, for those of you who don't live in America, so I will give you the lowdown. Simply put, several states throughout America have enacted red flag laws. And it pretty much goes like this. If you have legally purchased firearms, but your family, a psychiatrist, or even law enforcement think that you might be a danger to yourself or even others, they can petition the court to take away your guns. Now, although it's described as a temporary hold, they can hold your shit for up to a year. So basically, just in case you might do some bad shit, we're gonna take your shit. That's some Minority Report shit, yo. But I have a bigger question. Who defines what danger you pose to who? We already know how wild people can behave when it comes to political differences. So let's say I'm a Trumper and Trump loses this year's election, and I start going on Facebook and Instagram and telling my friends that, hey, we need to take back democracy. We need to take our country back at all costs. Well, if my friends or family who might be on the opposite side of the political spectrum and also don't like me too much want to engage in fuckery, then they can call the police and report my ass, resulting in my guns getting taken away. But the thing is, if I really want to commit a gun crime, I'm gonna get them guns. Illegally if I have to. And this goes to jdvance's point, because he's right. An overwhelming majority of school shooters don't get their guns from Walmart or even illegally. They get them from their parents. And the remaining percentage that doesn't, they get them illegally, which is almost always supplied by the cartel, who smuggle it in through the border. So the way I see it, banning assault weapons ain't gonna stop people from committing gun crimes, yo. They wanna get it, they'll just go through the black market.
Well, I think all the parents watching tonight, this is your biggest nightmare. Look, I got a 17-year-old and he witnessed a shooting at a community center playing volleyball. Those things don't leave you. As a member of Congress, I sat in my office surrounded by dozens of the Sandy Hook parents, and they were looking at my 7-year-old picture on the wall. Their 7-year-old were dead, and they were asking us to do something. And look, I'm a hunter. I own firearms. The vice president is. We understand that the Second Amendment is there, but our first responsibility is to our kids to figure this out.
Governor, you previously opposed an assault weapons ban, but it only later in your political career did you change your position. Why?
Yeah, I sat in that office with those Sandy Hook parents. I've become friends with school shooters.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
I've seen it. Look, the NRA, I was an NRA guy for a long time. They used to teach gun safety. I'm of an age where my shotgun was in my car so I could pheasant hunt after football practice. That's not where we live today.
Okay, so Tim has a point, but it's a very emotional point. From the story about a 17-year-old kid witnessing a shooting to him meeting with the actual parents of the victims of Sandy Hook. My man is basically trying to make people feel sad to agree with him. But his response reveals one key thing. He fundamentally doesn't understand what happened with Sandy Hook, because the kid who committed those horrible crimes, he got all of his guns from his mother. So 这个根本跟一个 assault weapons ban 没有关系啦. But here's the crazy thing. My man used to be against an assault weapons ban, but then in his own words, he spent a few hours with the Sandy Hook parents victims, and all of a sudden he's changed his mind.
That doesn't make any sense.
Bro, that is not a good way to make decisions as a leader. So here, JD's logical approach wins, because his approach is to solve the problem directly at the source, which is for illegal weapons, not only for school shooters, but for all gun crimes. So now you've seen what a civil debate looks like. And as you can see, they actually agreed on a couple of points. And this is the way it should be done. But the thing about civil debates is it has a huge trend. It is 无聊 as fuck. And let's be real, in this attention, clickbait, outrage economy, people want to see 血流成河. So, in the next chapter, you're going to see these politicians take their masks off, showing the world who they really are. And they're also going to make a couple of very big mistakes. Anyone who's been around long enough knows that sometimes you have to use a bad strategy to deal with a bad situation. And as Tim Walz brings up the whole Springfield incident, you're about to see JD Vance do exactly that in the worst way possible.
Now, Governor Walz brought up the community of Springfield, and he's very worried about the things that I've said in Springfield. Look, in Springfield, Ohio, and in communities all across this country, you've got schools that are overwhelmed. You've got hospitals that are overwhelmed. You've got housing that is totally unaffordable because we brought in millions of illegal immigrants to compete with Americans for scarce homes. The people that I'm most worried about in Springfield, Ohio, are the American citizens who have had their lives destroyed by Kamala Harris's open border. It is a disgrace, Tim. And I actually think, I agree with you. I think you want to solve this problem, but I don't think that Kamala Harris does.
Just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status.
Okay, so let's unpack this. JD referred to the Haitians as illegal immigrants, but they are not. They are under what's known as temporary protected status granted by the Biden administration, which makes them temporarily legal. So my man JD fucked up here.
Nora?
But
Thank you.
Senator, we have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important
We're
because
going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
the rules were that
The
you guys
economy,
weren't going to
we're-
fact check. And since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to, Senator.
Those laws have been on the books since 1990.
Thank you, gentlemen.
The CBP app has not been on the books since 1990. It's something that Kamala Harris created, Margaret.
Gentlemen, the audience can't hear you because your mics are cut.
And this is where JD Vance not only redeemed himself, but set the internet on fire. My man fact-checked the fact-checker, so I fact-checked them, and it turns out the facts are factual as fuck.
That's the fact, Jack! That's a fact, Jack!
So, back in 2023, Homeland Security published a shocking finding. So whereas the CBP-1 app was supposed to be used for legitimate asylum seekers, it turns out more than 95.8% of the people who were applying, and when they were granted a notice to appear, they were let into the country on parole. We're talking out of 27多个人在装，26万多个有进去嘞。Out of that 26万多, you had Chinese, Russians, Venezuelans, Afghanis, and everything in between.
Fuck.
But it wasn't only JD Vance who got fact-checked. Tim Walz got fact-checked as well. Let's see how he deals with the facts.
Governor Walz, you said you were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service. I joined the National Guard at 17. Worked on family farms. I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect. And I'm a knucklehead at times, but it's always been about that.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Well, clearly you didn't learn anything about how to tell the truth, because that was the biggest plate of word salad I've ever seen. And 我吃不下去耶. So whereas JD fact-checked the shit out of the fact-checkers, Tim Walz just got checked. And his excuse, well, I'm just a knucklehead sometimes. But to his credit, at least 他都没有放空, because for the majority of this debate, 一定很明啊.
Let's keep in mind where this started. October 7th, Hamas terrorists over 1,400 Israelis and took prisoners. And ending the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
God damn, my man did a straight up law and wasn't hot on national television live. It's like the Sleepy Joe debate all over again. So everyone agrees JD Vance won this debate. Even CNN and the rest of mainstream media think so.
JD Vance put on a masterclass in how to handle biased moderators and a lying opponent. And it was a thing of beauty. I'm going to start with Dan, our new friend, because he's a Democrat, and I would love to get your reaction to kick it off to what we just saw.
JD Vance did absolutely terrific tonight.
Raise your hand if you feel like Senator JD Vance won this debate.
And unlike Trump, who got ambushed by the moderators, JD Vance Uno reverse ambushed them motherfuckers and made them and Tim look bad. Now, although VP debates don't really move the needle in the grand scheme of things, this just might help Trump a little bit in the swing states. And if nothing else, it definitely makes JD Vance look like a goddamn rock star. And trust me, he needs it. His approval rating is like -13, yo. And I gotta admit, although I don't really like JD Vance, in this instance, he came out looking more presidential than all these fools combined. But that's just me. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment down below. And also, when it comes to these real civil debates, 他们很有料，但是很无聊哦。But if you want to see more stuff like this, let me know. Keep it civil, and I will see you on the flip side. Peace!